Picture standing on an open plain in Ice Age Europe, 40,000 years ago. The wind is coming off a glacier a few hundred kilometers away, and it has nothing to slow it down. Temperatures are well below freezing for months at a time. You have bare skin, no fur, no layer of fat thick enough to matter, and the sun sets at 4 in the afternoon. By every reasonable measure, you should be dead by morning. And yet here you are, reading this. Your ancestors didn't just endure winters like that. They spread across some of the coldest, harshest landscapes on the planet and stayed there for tens of thousands of years. They didn't do it with biology. Evolution didn't have time to grow us fur or a layer of blubber. They did it with invention. Let's start with how bad it actually was. During the depths of the last ice age, parts of Europe and Siberia sat under conditions closer to modern-day Antarctica than anything most of us have ever felt. Woolly mammoths and rhinoceroses grew thick coats to survive it. Humans grew nothing. A study published in the Journal of Human Evolution found that hominins were using bear hides for warmth as far back as 300,000 years ago, the oldest known evidence of humans relying on another animal's body to survive their own environment. Long before modern humans even existed, something in our lineage had already figured out, if your own body won't keep you warm, borrow one that will. So how did a hairless, fatless primate not just survive the deadliest winters on Earth, but actually push further into them generation after generation? It came down to a few key inventions. The first was fire, and more specifically, the discipline of never letting it go out. Ice Age humans didn't casually start a new fire every day. Flint and pyrite, the tools used to spark one, were treasured and carried everywhere. Evidence suggests that when groups moved, they carried burning embers with them, rather than risk starting from nothing in the cold. Dry fuel was gathered and stored inside shelters in advance. A fire wasn't a convenience, it was a lifeline that could not be allowed to die, because in that cold, if the fire went out, people did too. The second was clothing, and this is where things get genuinely clever. For hundreds of thousands of years, hominins wrapped themselves in loose draped hides, more like blankets than garments. That works to a point. But around 30,000 years ago, something changed the game entirely. The needle. Carved from ivory or bone with a tiny eye drilled through by a fine stone point, the needle let people do something no one could do before: tailor. Instead of a loose hide thrown over the shoulders, you could now cut skins to the shape of an arm, a leg, a torso, and stitch them into fitted, layered garments that trapped body heat instead of leaking it out through every gap. Burial sites in Russia, dated to roughly 24,000 years ago, show beads arranged in patterns that mirror the shape of tailored parkas, trousers, and boots, close-fitting enough that archaeologists can reconstruct what the actual clothing looked like just from where the beads fell on the skeleton. The third was shelter, and contrary to the popular image, Ice Age humans usually weren't hiding deep in caves. Caves were often cold, damp, and in short supply exactly where people needed them most. What they built instead were structures designed to trap warmth. In parts of Eastern Europe, some more than 20,000 years old, archaeologists have found circular dwellings built almost entirely from mammoth bones, arranged into a frame, then covered with hides and sod for insulation. A fire burned at the center of each one. These weren't just shelters, they were engineered microclimates, warm enough inside to live, sleep, cook, and wait out a storm that would kill an unprotected person in hours. The fourth was food, and specifically, the discipline of never letting a good kill go to waste. At Sassim Cave in Israel, evidence shows that as far back as 420,000 years ago, humans were wrapping bone marrow in skins and storing it, deliberately delaying when they ate it, in some cases for weeks. Later, Ice Age humans took this further, drying meat in bulk after a large hunt, and even submerging kills in cold ponds, where the near-freezing water kept it edible for far longer than the open air ever could. Winter wasn't a season you simply endured. It was a season you had to have prepared for months in advance, because once the snow came, there was very little left to find. Put those four things together: fire that never went out, clothing built for the body instead of draped over it, shelter engineered to hold heat, and food stockpiled before the cold arrived, and something remarkable happens. A creature with none of the biological tools for surviving extreme cold ends up living somewhere colder than almost any other primate on Earth ever has. Its wort